plan so you can see better the dimensions only. So your plan obviously is much busier. This is the existing house. We're going to do dimensions in model space, although some people do, mainly other professions. For architecture, you would do the dimensions in model space. So let's talk about setting things up first, and it's going to be different than what you're going to read in our textbook. I want you to show the concepts, because then you can use either setting dimensions from scratch and controlling the way they appear when printed and being 100% in control, or doing annotative dimensions, which is what I recommend that we do. That's what offices would be doing. The problem that I have with annotative, let's talk about concept first. Our sheets that we are working on as the basic standard Hinden sheet is the small sheets, 8.5 by 11. Do you remember from drafting what is the standard size of text for construction drawings? Architectural, civil, transportation. Do you remember the standard height? Louder. 1/8 of an inch, or 3 millimeters, okay? Now on our small sheets, if you create your portfolio masterpiece at the end of the semester, you print your entire package on those small sheets that are very handy for your portfolio binder. Then if you make text 1/8 of an inch, it will not look good. It will be too big. Now, having said that, very rarely you would be looking at architectural drawings printed on small sheets. So what happened in the office is you would work with standard scale, which would be 1/4 inch for plan. And what would happen is, if the boss came in and said, I got a meeting with the bank or lawyers, give me 8.5 by 11 sheets, we would most likely not even have layout tabs set up for small sheets. We would basically send the sheet scaled to fit, because the bankers and lawyers really would never even look at the scale. So if it was documentation to just show what drawings we have and just have an idea about the building size and shape up for discussion, you would just send them in the office to printer and basically print them to fit 8.5 by 11 sheet. But what happened, if you can picture this, all the dimensions and text also got shrunk. So the whole drawing looked good. Will you agree? So for that reason, to have a great portfolio for our small project, I will suggest that we use 1/16 for text size for these small sheets that we're working with. So your last assignment that we discussed on Tuesday is the large plot. So I'll give you the concept. We're going to kind of do the opposite. If you set the dimensions for our project for small sheet, and let's just talk about text height. 1/16 would be our text height. And what do you think is going to happen when you change the viewport scale to 1/4 inch for our A1 size plot? Use your imagination. What will actually happen to your drawing when you print it in bigger scale? What will happen to the 1/16 text? Nobody. It will be opposite of what we've done in the office. It will get twice as big. So if we're going to use 1/16 as our standard for our small sheets, for your A1 plot, if you design, there are a few people actually who want to do more than one A1 plot, you could have the whole package. More the merrier. Feel free to do more work than I'm asking you to do. If you want to have your entire project printed in standard architectural scales in 1/4 inch, you could lay out few sheets, and if you follow the instructions that I'll give you today, all of your 1/16 texts will be blown up by 50%, and they will become the drafting standard 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so this is how I've been running our project for quite a while. So let's now introduce the concept of annotative notes. Annotative notes will change the size of the font. So you will tell AutoCAD what you want. So let's say you tell AutoCAD that you want 1/8 of an inch standard. And then you will be changing the scale that you will be printing at and the text will be always going up or down to remain 1/8 of an inch printed. That's the concept of annotated. The problem that I have here is, let's say I will change the scale that I want and I make this text annotative, and I'm going to print it on very small sheet. This text is going to get blown up and it's going to be way out of proportion. Correct? It will also get blown up and it might be going beyond my walls and not be centered anymore and not look so good. So the advantage here is with annotative, all of your texts will change at the same time. With what I'm telling you, if you blow things up, they will also get all increased or decreased. But the individual texts are not going to be going up and down in value. Just your image is going to be bigger or smaller. So I'm a little bit of a control freak. I like to have things the way I want them. So if I want my text to sit right here, I don't want it to change location just because I changed the scale. So I'm going to do, this is in the natural, the annotative changes the size of text to always remain what it should be, which is 1/8 of an inch. What I'm going to show you for our project, because we have small sheets, I tell AutoCAD how I want my text to look, then I'm going to tell it what scale I'm going to be printing it at, and I'm going to leave it at that. So there's two ways of doing dimensions. Enough said, let's actually do this. Everything to do with annotation, which is texts, dimensions, and leaders, are under annotative tab. So you go to annotate, and you should have some fonts. Let's look at fonts that we have. We've already did title block, so I have my bold, I have my title text. I already have Roman. If you don't have Roman, add Roman. You should have it, but if you don't have it yet, I would suggest you use the Roman 4, and it's Roman SAH font, because all of the fonts that have that, believe it or not, this is a miniature, I think, miniature compass. All of the fonts on the list that have the drafting compass beside are one line, and they are best for AutoCAD. So City Blueprint you should not be using, because City Blueprint has the double line, it will bleed and it will not look good. And then title texts and bold are too bold to use for our dimensions. So I suggest you use Roman. It's by far the most common text used in architectural offices. It's nice and clear. So never change this height. So this was just to see what I have. We're going to use exactly the same access to settings for dimensions. So here's lesson number 1. If you're starting your project from scratch, you would have standard, and we will watch the video later. Steen starts with standard, and he takes you through everything, all of the settings. So in order to do both, I'll show you something else. If you're working, collaborating with anybody on a project, they may already have another style. Because you started with the project existing drawings that I gave you, my file came with dims. Now you're here in lab. I will be checking this. So when you give me your final project, I will go to dimension settings, and I will look that you've created your own new style. Okay? But I've highlighted dims because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the style that's a little bit better than standard, that's used basically by mechanical people. I'm going to override it. I'm going to call it my dims green project. So something that you could recognize, because in theory, through management functions of drawing management functions of AutoCAD, you can copy that style to another drawing. So in the office environment, you can be not always designing these styles. You can use the office standard. So everything is transferable. All of the settings that you're doing once, just like I taught you with title block, you can transfer that information to another project. So having one good setup for residential is going to go a long way in helping you out with future projects. If you started a template file for your home computer and you already have a standard residential title block, and you started from architectural sheet sets imperial template, now you could potentially add to it dimension style and have it already ready there for the next time you do the residential project. Now, having said that, I don't use the management functions. I always forget where they are, and I'll tell you what I do. Once I have a dimension style set up, I copy-paste any dimension from one file to the other. Because guess what? When you take the dimension, any dimension, and you bring it to another file, it brings the style with it. Very easy. Idiot-proof. Lovely way of cheating or speeding up the project. I want you to know how to, in future, work on projects. If you start in the office and you are supposed to follow someone's standard, you could potentially ask the person to just, you could start on their computer a new file and just copy-paste a dimension, send it to yourself to your computer, and you have the dimension style that that person used. Now, what I've just told you can also work at school, but I'm teaching you for the job. So don't give your dimension settings to others, right? But that's how you can simplify work on multiple projects. This is how you can collaborate in the office, or you can go the proper route and actually use the manager. Okay, so now let's do the settings. I'm going to continue. So now I always start from the tab called Fit, because as far as I'm concerned, it's the most important. So many people who are not here and who are not going to take time to listen to this, hopefully, recording, if we produce one, they're probably just going to accept my DIMS style and just continue with it and get really lousy dimensions. So let me warn you that those dimensions are somewhat architectural, but I purposely threw in a few things because I want you to change them. I want to differentiate between students who are just going to follow the easy route and those who are actually going to try to learn something here. So first of all, on our drawings, and this is where you're going to hear something different on Steen's video later on, and what I'm going to tell you. On the drawings that I will be looking at, I don't want to see any fractions. Your drawing is going to look horrific. Your floor plan for the whole house is going to be horrific on 8.5 by 11 if you're showing any fractions. Trust me, in 1/8 of an inch scale on a small sheet, no contractor, no designer would care about 1/32 or 1/8 of an inch dimension. But more importantly, you want to have a set of drawings that's going to be smashing, looking beautiful. You want to be able to take it to interview, show it to somebody, and look good. So here is school environment versus real environment. In the video, our textbook author tells you that it's very important to set the accuracy to actually, let's talk about, it's here, primary units. To set, obviously we got to set our units to architectural, and he will say you should be setting it up to like 64. So you can see when you're dimensioning what your dimension truly is with a very, very accurate precision. Okay? So in real life you would do that, because if you're getting bathroom that's 4 feet, 9 inches, and 3/4, you know your tub is not going to fit. And you've got to change that dimension. So if that's what you drew, you should change it to 5 feet. I like to make it even a little bit more than 5 feet in case my contractors mess up and I don't get 5 feet clear. And if you're going to change the dimension but not redraw the geometry, then you have to remember in real life that something has to give along the string, or your dimensions don't add up to overall house dimension. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for purposes of our project, I want you to forget about inches, and that's the easiest way. So we're not going to show any fractions, no matter how accurate or not accurate your drawing is, because the objective now is to have a good-looking package. All right? And the way to do it is to simply, under primary units, say, don't show me any fractions, period. So this is where those of you who are here and listening, one little click, and you're going to have a great-looking package where the drawings that I already got from you, because we haven't done this, show all these fractions. We don't want to see fractions. We want beautiful drawings. Another thing that's very important on this tab, and I know I said to start from fit, but we've got to do this first. So we'll start from primary units. There is another thing here to change. Let's talk about that one. What is the standard for architectural drawings? If you have an 8-inch wall, you would say 8-inch. You would not say 0 feet 8 inches. Okay? So we're going to take this off. Okay? But if you have 3 feet, 3 feet, we don't say 3 feet, we say 3 feet 0 inches. So we want 3 feet 0 inches, and we want just 8 inches. And you know what? If you confused for a moment, I got confused here. This sometimes gets confusing, what you want to keep, what you don't want to keep. You either think about it, or you know when to come back to change it later. So I think I've got it right. Do I want to suppress the feet or suppress the inches? I think it's the other way around. I'm going to go the other way around. But if you get confused, I want you to know that if you get this the wrong way, that's where you go to fix it. So I'm going to go suppress 0 feet. Then I'm going to go back to fit. But let's just mention alternative units. Alternative units, if you click this aerial button on, a very handy function of AutoCAD for meetings with people who work in the other system. You could have a client that has been working only with metric. You're doing the imperial set, and they're saying, well, what is it in meters? And you don't know. If you go into meeting with that person, if you put that radio button on, in brackets, you will get the alternate dimensions. Very nice function to have, but don't put that radio button on for our project, because it's just going to mess things up for us tremendously. It's just a handy thing to know about. So let's go now to next most important thing. You always want to keep text between extension lines. What does that mean? It means that if you start from standard, dimension settings standard default is designed, AutoCAD was designed for mechanical people working one-to-one models of engineering parts. So mechanical drawings are done differently than construction drawings. Their dimensions sit between the line, like the line is broken and the dimension sits between dimension lines. So what we're saying here, and on the top of it, if AutoCAD doesn't have room for something, AutoCAD automatically throws things off, and then it has leaders. So there's a number of options how your dimensions can look. But there's only one look we want for construction drawings, and that means always keep text between these extension lines. The next one is over dimension line. Don't give me any leaders. We don't want the dimension to be placed beside and then have some squiggly line pointing to where that dimension actually is. Just forget about it. Always between extension lines, always above, without any leaders. We also always want to draw line between extension lines, okay? Look what happens if this is off, and that again relates back to mechanical drawings. Mechanical people have the line broken to show the actual dimension, so it would look ridiculous if dimension line goes through the text, but we are always above, and the drafting standard for us is always draw dimension line between extension lines. Okay, and here is the two ways you can do your drawings. One is annotative, and then the scale here will be taken from the viewport. Okay? Within the viewport, and this is something that you must remember, that if you go annotative, then you have to have these functions on, and you have to set the scale in your viewport. It's not showing now because we're in the model space. But you have to set the scale you will be printing it, and then as you change that scale, your sizes of everything that you're specifying here will be going up or down per viewport scale that you're assigning here. But these two fans, or whatever those symbols are, need to be on. They are annotative symbol. Okay. So the video that we're going to look at is going to follow up with annotative. What I'm going to talk to you about now is this scale. So what I have for my dimensions right now, the ones I'm copying from DIMS. I said I'm going to be printing in 1/8 of an inch. So why does it say 96? This is a fundamental thing that I do want you to know. Do we have the erasing pad here? Oh no. This is the only part of the board that we can see. Let me see in the box. Am I blind? I'm not blind. There is no erasing sponge. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's try to use what we have. 1/8 of an inch equals 1 foot 0 inches. That's how we show scale, right? Our scale on a drawing. That's what goes as a standard in your title block. That's how we've always done it when we were doing board drafting. But AutoCAD needs to know numbers in inches. Sometimes you can type in fractions, but in this dialog box you type in 96 because we're going to express this scale with rounded up inches. 1/8 of an inch equals 1 foot equals 12 inches. That's easy, right? Now if I don't want to have fractions, I got to multiply both sides by 8. So it's basically saying the same thing as 1 equals, what's 8 times 12? 96. 96. Now, if you're working in metric, you would know that you have to put scale 100. I'm going to work with 100, 500, right? This is kind of like saying, telling AutoCAD 1 to 96. You're going to actually find out that if you buy a template, metric template, you can use 1 to 100 template for 1/8. You can use 1 to 50 template for 1/4 inch scale, because they're actually very close. 96, that's 4% difference. So it's kind of like saying 1 to 96. So that's why here in Imperial, we're saying 96. So if your scale is 1/4 inch, what would you say here? What's 4 times 12? Keith, think with me. 4 times 12. We're being recorded here. We're going live. 48, okay. Close to 50. Okay, so now that you know this little piece of information, let's give you another smart thing to remember. Let's do text. Let's go to the left now. Text. The next thing to remember that's crucial is that I suggest that you remember these settings as tell AutoCAD how you want your dimensions to look, and then tell it what scale you'll be printing at, or make it annotative so it changes with the viewport scale. Do you understand what I'm saying? It means that these 3 tabs, you tell AutoCAD how you want your dimensions to look. Not guessing. Not guessing. What do I want for my text height? What did we say we're going to do? We said 1/16. Now, students who are not here, who are not going to make these changes, are going to go with my 1/8, and their dimensions will be way too big on that small sheet and texts. Okay, we've got to be above and center. Those are the settings where if you're ever confused, there's only one way to go above and centered. The first one is to go above. This is text placement, and basically that relates to above the dimension line and in the center of dimension line always. Now per default you would get horizontal because that's how mechanical people do dimensions, but we need to always align with dimension line. That will also take care of your verticals and your angled lines. So this is how we want them. We're getting somewhere. What looks funny right now? My text is smaller, but my ticks and all of the other settings are a little bit big, right? So I'm going to work on them. Is there anything else here? Offset from dimension line. There's few other settings here, which is extensions here, and offset from dimension line. I'm going to reduce this gap here. Okay, I know it's very small, but offset from dimension line. Now, I'm going to work, and this is where you say what you want. I'm going to work with the very, very elegant small dimensions for my small prints. Okay? So I'm going to make everything else 132. But this is something where you have a little bit of flexibility. If you think that larger ticks are better, then go with bigger. So 132 will change, and as soon as you click somewhere else, you see how now the text is much closer to my dimension line. Symbols and arrows. Because I'm copying my dimensions, I already changed from arrows to ticks. Architectural drawings will use ticks. I like ticks in AutoCAD better than arrows because arrows need more room. And because they need more room, then your dimensions don't look as clean. So I change it to architectural tick, but I keep leaders as arrows. Now, arrow size also controls the tick size, and this is another thing that I'll sketch here so you can understand. I don't have the erasing thing, but let's do the arrow here. Remember we did arrow like this, right? In drafting we did arrow like this, and it's supposed to be about 3 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch on our larger sheets. So for my drawing, I would say probably I want it again 1/16. I'm actually going to type in 132 for my tick, because this is the point and this is the size of the arrow, but when you do tick, it still measures it from here to here. So I'm going to make it half of what I actually want it to be, I think. Well, we can test it whether what we're getting is this. I'm going to make it also 132, but you have a little bit of flexibility here of how you adjust your dimensions so they come out absolutely stunning on in your portfolio. The idea I want you to get here today is that set up these tabs to the way you want them printed, and then tell AutoCAD the scale you will be printing at. So I'm going to make everything here empty too. Some of the other things you're never going to deal with. So now you see what's happening. Now what's not looking good is I almost don't see my ticks, but my extension beyond tick and in both directions also need to be adjusted. So baseline spacing, you could change it to maybe 1/4 inch if you want to accept AutoCAD throwing in dimensions automatically, but I don't think you're going to have that problem, but let's change it anyway. So 1/4 inch would be the distance between the dimension lines on our small sheets. Again, I'm designing it for my small sheets. Here's extend beyond dimension line. I have 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to work with 132 for everything, so it's easy to remember. And then offset from origin is that little space here. So you could keep it at 16th. I'm going to also make it 132. Sometimes you can suppress or you by accident have this on. Make sure that you don't suppress the extension lines. So I am on my last, and if I didn't forget anything, then I'm going to hit OK and click on my dimensions for green project and set it as current and close. So now that style is current, so if I do the dimension, that's what I should be getting. So let's see what we are going to get. So now dimension tab. We can start from basic dimension, and you have to, I'm not going to, but you should be zooming up, making sure that you're picking the correct points. So I'm going to place my overall dimension here. Oops. What happened? Not good. Not good. It came, I have an option of either moving a text or moving a dimension. So you can click dimension and you can actually alter it. You can also move the grip and relocate the dimension itself. Okay. So the next thing is, we did talk about dimensions. Let's rehearse and make sure that your dimensions are done professionally for the project. The outside ones are a little bit more easy than the interior ones. On the outside, you need to have the overall dimension for your project, and in all honesty, our house is existing house, 36 and 1 inch. There's probably overall 36 dimension for the original house that was built, and then we have these layers of siding that I measured. So that's why we probably ended up with the measured dimension 36.1. So your overall dimension for your addition should not be 36.1, right? The builders don't want to build addition that's 36 feet 1 inch. It should be 36 feet, unless there is a reason why that 1 inch is there. But more importantly, all dimensions in the string have to add up. So your next string should show all of the jogs, if you have them, and then the last third string shows openings. So you should be now zooming up closer, making sure you're picking up. I'm going to undo, because we forgot one step. What did I forget? You've done dimensions before. What did I forget? I forgot to pick continue. So I'm going to click here, and then I picked here. I'm not there yet. I have to set the location. So if my location is here, then you want to continue. So the continue is very important because you then line dimensions up. You should be zooming up as you do this and making sure that you're picking up the right points of your string, and you have the string of dimensions, or if you followed everything correctly, we don't see any fractions. I'm not questioning how they're going to come out. They're going to come out perfect, but I might be looking for some problems, and I see one. Do you see the problem? In my dialog boxes, I have gone through motions of changing it to the Roman style, but it did not happen. It's still coming up this mushy, unclear double line text. So I've done chunk of work I would hate to lose, so I'm going to save, but I'm going to go back to dimensions and modify it with regards to text, because I've gone through motions, but I've never actually changed it. Now the beauty of this style change is that we are still current. This dimensions for green project is still current. As soon as I click OK, they should get updated. So you see what happened to my text. It's now the nice clean font that I originally wanted. So this is how you remember that if you have jogs in the building, you would have overall, then about 1/4 inch down, you would have jogs in the building, outside to outside corner of the frame, and then, last but not least, openings. There are two ways of doing dimensions for openings. Some very quick construction drawings, builders especially, they will dimension to the center of the window, and I think that's what Steen is doing in his textbook. Whenever I designed houses, I always specified dimensions of windows I wanted. Because if you dimension to the center, you're giving builder an option of putting whatever window they can find cheap. I like control. I want a certain look. I've always dimensioned my project to the opening, so the dimensions that had to be purchased, if on drawing, then the builder is obliged to provide what's on the drawing. So my client would always get the windows that I sized. So the height would go on elevation view, but the openings would be dimensioned here, and then the comprehensive set of drawings would actually have a drawing on the drawing summary would have a table specifying doors and window schedule. Okay, so the other problem that students often have is the interior string. So I want to cover it at least with you, so you don't have that problem. So the interior string of dimensions, you could, if you don't want double lines, that you would start somewhere on a wall, and I would suggest that you cover your wall thicknesses with one general note. You would say all interior partitions are 4-inch studs, 1/2-inch drywall both sides, and don't dimension them on a string. All exterior wall is 8-inch or 12-inch, and you have that information on your section. So I would not clutter our small drawing dimensioning each wall. Now, another thing about I'm dimensioning the existing house. You don't have to dimension for our project what you don't change. You can just note it existing. Okay? You should be dimensioning really only the walls that are to be built by the builder. So this is where I mentioned that smart designers would have a way of either highlighting or using different colors or different line weights. They would have a way of telling builder what is to be removed and what is new and what is staying the way it is. But I'm working with the existing file, so let's say I'm going to be building this closet, but I don't really care about the closet opening. I care about where that wall is to be built, and then the third point is the location, and then you would click on continue. And I would, and do get into habit of actually zooming out closer and getting the correct, and then I would say perpendicular to finish the string. So you should be zooming in and out to make sure that you're catching the right corners. If you don't do that, sometimes you could be catching the extension lines, not the corner, but the extension line of your dimension line, and you could be in trouble. But I want to concentrate on something more important. Your drawings, as generated by computer, may not come out very clear here. Okay? So here is where, before you finalize your final project, you should look at your dimensions, say this is clean, I'm a little bit too congested here. Now you can either remove that dimension at all, place it somewhere else in another string, or take this dimension, grab the text and move it. So you see this one is showing as 10 inches below. The other thing that can happen is the note might be, like you see how extension line sits right on 1 and we actually don't see it. So let's see if we can actually physically move it somewhere where it would not interfere with things. So, sometimes you have to make adjustments to have the dimension if it's required, but not necessarily have it the way you're supposed to have it, because if they all mush together, then the contractor is not going to be able to build it. I think that for this Roman text, I might actually go back to the text setting. If you want to try it, I haven't done it yet, I haven't tested it, but under your Roman, let's try it, because I think it comes out quite spaced out. Let's try something. You see this width factor under Roman? How about if I make the width factor 0.75, like 0.75? You never change the height, but you could play with the width. If I say apply and close, nothing has changed. So the text here did not get updated automatically. But let's try the new string, or maybe the update will do it. There's a quick update, but that won't necessarily. Let's try another string of dimensions. Let's say from here to here. Yeah, you see the 5, 6? You see how it looks different than 5, 1? So that's another trick that you can use, but because it's the setting of the text and not dimension style, it does not happen automatically. So what you would have to do is undo your dimensions or delete the string that I've just created and actually redo them if you want a little bit tighter dimensions. So now how many dimensions do you actually need? Well, you should cover all of your new construction. So there might be 2 or 3 horizontal strings. Let's talk about something else. If you come to the area, on a real project, I would probably take 1 dimension out. Let's say I would take this dimension out. It's still a string, but what I'm telling contractor, that 13 feet is expensive. That 13 feet is important. The 5 feet is important. Give me all of these strings. This is your leeway. Do you understand what I'm saying? Or maybe it would be this way. These are very important because I have to move furniture, but I would leave the last dimension out in a string so that the builder gives me specified dimensions, and any of the imperfections will happen where it does not matter 1 inch one way or the other. So if there are specific dimensions on my project, I would dimension them So if I look at your strings and you leave that least important dimension, the leftover dimension, open, I will know that you are listening and you're actually trying to do the same thing. But in a nutshell, how many strings, horizontal strings? The students ask me, how many strings? Well, as many strings as you need to have contractor build all the walls that you need. But to simplify the drawing, I would not be dimensioning the walls. I would just have a general note saying all walls to be 4 inch with half-inch drywall both sides. Now, having said that, you draw the wall either 4 inch or 5 inch because the 4 inch stud is actually smaller, and the half-inch drywall could be the smaller drywall, whatever the contract specifies further. Our drawings are not actually specifying what drywall the contractor has to use, so if they use the 5/8, 5/8 is bigger or smaller. 5/8 is bigger than half-inch. So if they use 3/8, then the wall size changes. So that's why I always want it to be safe. And the dimensioning on a real project is of huge importance. And since you're doing AutoCAD now, and AutoCAD knows what the dimension is because you drew the geometry, you kind of follow it like a monkey, and you shouldn't. So keep that in mind that, yes, I will be looking at good-looking package. There's no way I can look at 85 projects and test your dimensions. But on a real project, you will be a laughing stock of construction guys if your dimensions don't add up by 1 foot here and there. And more importantly, on the bigger projects, you could be losing your job if it costs lots of money to fix your negligence. So the dimensioning should not be underestimated, and it should be done correctly, and it should be cleared so the project can be built according to the intended project design. So the students who are here, students who are listening, who are going to make an effort to do it right, will have dimensions looking like this. Students who are going to take my DIMS, because they're better than standard, are going to have these settings and all of these fractions. And so the dimensions that I gave you, the few overall dimensions that I gave you, are purposely set incorrectly to weed out the students who do their job and who don't. The same goes for vertical strings. You don't have to repeat overall dimensions on all sides, so one overall dimension in both directions is enough. If you have the landscaping stuff, clearances, then they also should be dimensioned. So let's now talk about the note. Let's say I want to add a simple note, and it's going to be a multi-text note, general note here, sitting in the box, and I don't want it bigger. I don't want it too small, but I don't want it bigger than this. So I'm going to click like that, and the first thing AutoCAD is going to give me is this information box, and the first thing that you have to look at is text size. And my last note was done with 1/8 of an inch, and I am not choosing annotative because I want you to do high math. I want you to think. The last size of the text I used was 1/8 of an inch, probably when we were doing the table, a title block. I'm giving you a little bit of hints here, but not much. Because I want you to get this today so you can be equipped for life with this. So what height do I need to tell AutoCAD? If I want my note to be 1/16 of an inch, I don't have the erasing pad. We want 1/16. I want this size text. What do I tell AutoCAD here? Do I tell 1/16? Anybody? Do I say 1/16? Should we try? Okay, 1/16. I'm going to type, what was it? General note. General note, all interior walls are 4-inch studs and drywall. Click. Where did it go? I could have lost it. or it's there and I can't even see it. 1/16 of an inch in model space is 1/16. This is the whole house, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously not the right height. So what do we need? I'm going to undo. What do we need? High-level math problem, right? Let's do it again. But I do have to change the text from the title block back to Roman. Set it as current. Close. High-level math. Let's do this again. Starts here, and it's set to justify, but we're after height. So height, 96 divided by 16 is 6. So I'm going to say 6 instead. High-level math. Wall wall width is, so let's say 8 feet. 8 feet dash 0 inches. So wall height. So now I have a note that has the same font, and it has the height that follows the height of the text. Very easy to make these mistakes, but we really shouldn't when it comes to simple math like this, but it's easily made. So if you wanted something not 1/16 of an inch but 1/8 of an inch, that's where you would type in 12. Okay? And the same way, if you want your titles to be much bigger, you decide what you want. If you want something ½ inch, it will be ½ inch times the scale, which is 96. 96 divided by 2. Okay? So that's in a nutshell how you would do the height in model space. But now if you go to your main layout tab, so I'm going to, let's save this. If I go to main layout tab, and now in paper space, I'm going to click to paper space, and I want 1/16 inch note. I'm going to come here just to move it, and then come to paper space, and I want exactly the same height, exactly the same font, but now I'm in paper space, and I want to do a general note, but on under my, let's say, revisions, and I want to use the same height, 1/16 of an inch on my small sheet. So what do I do now, ladies and gentlemen? What is my height now in paper space? Anybody? It remembers 6 inch. But what do I need now? I'm in paper space, and I want 1/16 of an inch. You know, you've got to try it, and please do yourself a huge favor, try this, because this is very simple and fundamental, and if you get it once, will stay with you for life. And having control over dimension sizes and text sizes is huge time saver, because you won't have to be guessing or going plus minus. So in paper space is 1-to-1. What I'm looking at is one size sheet of paper. So if I want my text to be 1/16, I would say 1/16. I'm in paper, I'm in 1-to-1. Okay? And then I type something. Wall is 8 feet dash 0 inches, and the text comes up. My justification is fit, so I could probably change the property, and you shouldn't be using the fit setting. So to work with the notes, you should actually have top, is it top bottom? Top left. Top left? No, top bottom left, I think is the standard, isn't it? Okay, so you see this height is in model space, this height is in paper space. They will both come up the same, and I'm controlling the height by knowing what I want and knowing whether I'm in paper space or model space. Basically in model space, it's like you take a big paintbrush and you have to paint your note on the grass of a big house. And if you're going to reduce it 96 times, you're going to reduce the text as well. So that's text in controlling it by doing what we just did. when you select your text to be height to be annotative, if you go to your multi-line text and under styles, we have styles under height. We've lost the annotative. You have to, if you set it to annotative, then your notes are going to be changing size based on changed viewport. And we're going to run the little video from Stain's textbook and play with this. I use the text this way because, as I mentioned, if this is going to go up and down with my scale, I am losing the control over where it's placed with regards to the drawing, because the placement of the text will stay in the same spot. So if I go to model space and I click this and it is here, it will be in exactly the same point, but my image is going to change. So I like to work with texts this way, and on residential projects I really would be printing in 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 inch, but it will be pretty interesting to actually work with both today. Try them in your drawing. So for the final project, I will look that your fonts for texts and dimensions are the same and that the heights are the same. But whether you'll go and try this annotative, we'll watch it, and he shows you everything, how to set it up. Whether you go one way or the other, I will be looking that they are 1/16 of an inch on small. And then in A1 size, they should be bigger. Okay, so let's give it a try on our drawing, but at the same time we will also watch the video based on our